If you want to be more attractive, if you want better results in your dating life or your relationships, the most direct path to that is actually indirect. You strengthen the structure, the underlying structure of your life. And for those of you operating at a high level professionally, this applies just as much. If your company is stable, but you're no longer stretched, if your achievements might look impressive, but your days feel repetitive, you can easily turn romantic intensity into your primary source of aliveness.
Welcome to Beyond Success, the podcast for high achievers seeking deeper meaning, fulfillment, and purpose. Now, here's your host, world-renowned leadership coach and therapist, David Tian, PhD.
For those of you who have followed my work for a while, thank you. And you might recall that I used to host a podcast called Masculine Psychology, and way back, another one called Masculinity for the Intelligent Man. And the theme I'm going to explore in this episode originally came out of that context, out of conversations with men about dating, attraction, and identity. But over time, it became obvious to me that the structure that we're talking about applies far beyond just attraction. The same pattern shows up in leadership, in achievement, in meaning itself. Whenever one domain is asked to carry your entire sense of worth, instability will definitely follow. So in this episode, I want to show you why your attractiveness starts to slip through your fingers when you ask it to answer bigger questions, such as questions about your identity or purpose or your self-esteem or self-worth. When you understand the structure, you stop trying to fix attraction directly, and instead, you strengthen the life that undergirds your attractiveness. A lot of ambitious people assume that if attraction feels intense or painful, then attraction must be the problem. So they focus on becoming more attractive. They monitor their behavior. They try to control their thoughts. They try to stay less reactive, less eager, less invested, less needy. But attraction is a byproduct. It's a side effect of living a life that you respect, a life that has greater purpose and meaning, a life that carries meaning independent of who is currently attracted to you. When you make attraction the focus, though, you reverse that order and you treat the effect as the cause. And when that happens, you begin building your emotional stability on something that was never meant to function as a foundation for that. If you haven't clarified the direction of your life, or if your sense of purpose has faded, you become needy without even realizing it. You begin leaning too heavily on one slim pillar. You start asking attraction to supply reassurance about whether you're enough, or whether you matter, or whether your life is going somewhere meaningful. And that's way too much weight for that one slim pillar. So attraction is not the true problem. The real problem begins when you expect attraction to answer questions about your identity or self-esteem or self-worth or meaning. When you look to someone else's attraction or interest in you to confirm your worth, you're asking for it to do something that it was never meant to do and cannot do. And as soon as you view someone else's attraction or interest in you as a verdict on your self-worth, your nervous system, consciously or unconsciously, will react accordingly. It'll tighten up, tense up. It'll scan constantly. It'll try to recover ground. Attraction, though, cannot carry this existential weight. It simply was not built for it. If your broader life feels stalled or undefined, your internal system keeps looking for something more vivid to hold on to. Your internal system wants movement. It wants a signal that you're alive and progressing. Attraction can provide that signal for a while. When someone desirable shows you attraction, you might feel relief. Your chest might open up, your thoughts settle, your smile is broad, and for a moment you feel special, you feel chosen. But when that attraction fades away, maybe even slightly, your internal system reads this as instability, and if attraction has been functioning as your main source of reassurance or self-worth, that instability will feel like a dangerous threat. Under those conditions, desire stops being just desire. It starts regulating your self-worth. You don't just want her because she's attractive, you want her because her interest stabilizes you. And when her interest wavers, your sense of groundedness or footing or centeredness wavers along with it. That's why rejection can feel disproportionately bad. On the surface, it looks like you're just reacting to one person's preference. But underneath, your internal system is reacting to the collapse of a structure that you were leaning completely on. You were leaning on attraction to tell you that you matter. So imagine your life as a structure supported by multiple pillars: work, health, friendships, your craft, purpose, a contribution. When those pillars are strong, attraction rests lightly on top of them. It might add color. It could add excitement. It adds intimacy. But if most of those pillars are weak or undeveloped or missing, attraction itself becomes a main support beam. And once that happens, every movement inside that one beam feels seismic. You start replaying interactions in your head. You analyze voice tone. You analyze response times. You interpret a delayed reply as loss of interest. You interpret a short message as cooling attraction. You tell yourself you're being attentive, but what you're actually doing is that you're trying to stabilize a structure that's too narrow and weak and cannot hold. The intensity you feel isn't proof that she's extraordinary. Instead, it's evidence that attraction has become your primary source of purpose. And when attraction is your brightest source of meaning, of course it feels urgent. Of course it feels high stakes. You've made it high stakes. Now, if you're listening to this and thinking, well, I have a strong career, I'm doing well, I'm building things, this doesn't apply to me, well, let's look a little closer. Because sometimes work itself used to be the pillar. Work used to provide momentum, maybe. Maybe it provided challenge and direction. And then work stabilized, it settled down. Maybe your career or your studies went into maintenance mode. I know what that's like. You're still successful, you're still respected, but the edge has softened. And without realizing it, you lost a source of forward motion of progress. So when you re-enter the dating world, attraction suddenly feels electric. It feels alive in a way that your day-to-day life at work no longer does. And instead of seeing that as a signal to reinvest in your broader new direction or new purpose, instead you pour more energy into attraction. You tell yourself you're just being intentional, but your behavior tightens up, your body tenses up. You escalate faster than the dynamic ought to support. You try to secure clarity and get a certainty or security from her before it's natural. That undue, disproportionate pressure leaks out, and people pick up on it. Neediness isn't about wanting someone. It's about needing them to regulate your sense of who you are, your identity, that you're enough, that you're worthy. If you want her because you enjoy her, that's healthy, it's normal. If you need her because her interest stabilizes your self-esteem, then that is toxic, unhealthy, and unstable. And the brutal part is that the more weight you load onto the attraction pillar, the more fragile it becomes. Every fluctuation gets amplified. A small dip in enthusiasm feels like a cliff. A neutral message could feel like rejection. Your system overreacts because it's protecting the only pillar that feels alive. So fixation develops. You replay the date. You replay the conversation. You rehearse alternative responses, the way you wish you had done it. You imagine future scenarios. You feel spikes of hope when she re-engages, and then sharp drops when she pulls back. From the outside, it looks like you're just overthinking. From the inside, though, it actually feels like survival, whether you're aware of it or not. But it's survival inside a structure that's far too narrow. Attraction was never meant to carry your existential weight. It was meant to sit on top of a life that already has direction. And when you reverse that order, when you make attraction the foundation instead of the expression, then you don't just make yourself anxious. You make the whole dynamic too heavy to bear. People don't pull away because you care too much. They pull away because they can feel when they are being asked to hold up your identity or sense of self-worth. That's too much to ask of anyone. If you want attraction to feel steady, you have to widen the underlying structure. You have to build pillars that can actually carry meaning independent of whoever is currently interested or attracted to you. Because until you do, every little fluctuation will feel amplified, and every rejection will feel like some kind of verdict on who you are. This isn't just theoretical. I've watched this play out in real time. One client I worked with had built his whole identity around work for more than a decade. Looking from the outside, you'd think he was doing extremely well. He had a senior role, strong compensation, real responsibility, and for years his career gave him structure, recognition, purpose, progress, forward motion. He worked very long hours, but rarely questioned the direction because the progress itself felt meaningful to him. He didn't have to ask whether he was making progress in his life. He obviously was. But over time, his role stabilized. The growth phase slowed. The urgency reduced. He wasn't struggling anymore. He wasn't building something new. He was maintaining something established. And that subtle shift mattered a lot more than he realized at the time. He didn't consciously register the change. He still told himself he was ambitious. He still showed up. He still performed. But his nervous system noticed that the edge was gone. The domain that used to carry purpose began to feel automatic. He had momentum, but it wasn't stretching him. And then he started dating again. And on paper, this looked healthy. He'd been busy for years. Now he had more time. He wanted connection. And that makes sense. But instead of treating dating as one part of a broader life, he treated it as the new arena of significance. The women he dated became the place where he looked for intensity and validation and direction. Because he was now relying on attraction for his life's purpose, every interaction felt high stakes. He didn't tell himself this explicitly. He wasn't aware of it at the time. But watch the behavior, right? He overinterpreted all the text messages. If she replied a little slower, he felt it in his chest, this tightening, this kind of panic, this anxiety. If she sounded enthusiastic, his mood lifted for hours, days sometimes. He escalated too quickly because he wanted certainty. He monitored responses because the uncertainty felt intolerable to him. He tried to secure commitment before the connection had naturally matured. From his perspective, he was just serious. From her perspective, though, he came across heavy and needy. The women did not withdraw because he lacked value. They withdrew because his neediness signaled instability, a lack of self-confidence, a lack of self-esteem, a lack of self-worth. And attractive women, especially women with a lot of options, are extremely sensitive to that signal. When attraction is forced to carry your identity, it becomes needy. And when you become needy, you stop being attractive. And here's how this really came home to him. He kept trying to fix his dating behavior. He kept asking whether he was texting too much, or whether he was escalating too soon, or whether he needed better timing. He thought the solution was in something he was doing, in some kind of technique or tactic. And he actually asked her how he can become or come across less needy. In other words, he made it her problem to figure out and fix him and his neediness, which made her relationship with him feel even heavier, even more burdensome, like he was sloughing off his responsibility for himself onto her. Tell me how I can please you, as if he were some kind of house servant pleading to the boss, trying not to get fired. But his problem wasn't tactical. It wasn't even about attraction. It was much deeper than that. It was sort of the structure of his life. His life outside dating had completely thinned out. Work no longer challenged him. He had let his friendships drift away. His physical fitness had become non-existent, and there was no demanding project pulling him forward. So dating became the only arena where he felt this intensity that he wanted. And when one arena becomes your only source of intensity, you can't help but overload it. So we didn't work on lines or strategies. We worked on rebuilding his momentum in his life overall. And we started with the simple stuff. He recommitted to health and fitness in a serious way. Not casually going to the gym, but getting a trainer and following a structured plan with measurable progression. He picked up a demanding side project at work that required him to learn new skills and manage a new team. He re-engaged friendships that had depth rather than just convenience. And within a few months, his broader life had more of an edge again. And then he had his gradual, quiet breakthrough. He didn't try to be less needy. His neediness receded on its own because he got his life together again. And as a result, he became more naturally attractive. Because attraction was no longer his primary source of meaning, The fluctuations inside his dating life stopped feeling existential. If a woman pulled back, he felt disappointment, but his groundedness wasn't affected. His mood no longer rose and fell based on her response time. He didn't learn any new tactics. Instead, he redistributed the weight of his life onto the correct pillars, the ones that could bear that weight.
Sometimes the real problem isn't more effort or more motivation. It's knowing the right direction. A lot of people listening to this podcast are capable and driven. Things still look fine on paper, but life still feels strangely flat. When that happens, more advice usually isn't the answer. Clarity is. I've put together a short assessment that takes about 2 minutes. It's simply a way to see which area deserves your attention most right now, whether that's relationships, decision-making, or how pressure is being handled day to day. Based on your responses, you'll be sent a short set of masterclasses related to that area. If that sounds useful, you can find it at dtphd.com/quiz. That's dtphd.com/quiz.
As his broader life began moving again, his attractiveness stopped functioning as his primary regulator. So his nervous system had other sources of momentum. His identity didn't hinge on his progress in his romantic life. And because he no longer needed dating to stabilize him or give his life meaning, his behaviors relaxed. He slowed down a lot more. He listened more. He was able to be a lot more present, fully present, emotionally and psychologically. He stopped trying to secure certainty from her prematurely. And the women responded completely differently. Not because he had become more clever or charming, but because his life outside women became a lot more fulfilling and purposeful and stable. So if you want to be more attractive, if you want better results in your dating life or your relationships, the most direct path to that is actually indirect. You strengthen the structure, the underlying structure of your life. And for those of you operating at a high level professionally, this applies just as much. If your company is stable, but you're no longer stretched, if your achievements might look impressive, but your days feel repetitive, you can easily turn romantic intensity into your primary source of aliveness. And that might hold your interest for a while and take your mind off things. But eventually, if you put too much onto that little pillar, it'll collapse under its own weight. Attraction can decorate a life, but attraction cannot define it. When you ask your attractiveness to define you, it will completely buckle and collapse. Even when you understand this, theoretically or structurally, this pattern can still persist. It persists because attraction in the dating game, the highs of that, are immediate, and life building is not. Attraction gives you quick feedback. You send a message and you see the typing indicator, ... You go on a date and you can read her facial expression. You post a photo and you see who responds. The emotional loop is tight. Input, output, action, response, effort, signal. You feel something right away. You get immediate response. And your nervous system likes that. In fact, it's addictive. Life building, though, works very differently. If you decide to change your career trajectory, you might not see meaningful results for 6 months or more. If you decide to build your body properly, you won't feel transformed next week. It'll take time. If you commit to mastering anything, or mastering a craft, the early stages are always slow and humbling with high attrition. You have to tolerate effort before reward. You have to act before certainty. And that is much harder. When your brain feels understimulated or directionless, it defaults toward what produces immediate response. It gravitates toward what feels alive right now. Attraction delivers that hit cleanly and reliably. So even when attraction destabilizes you, you end up returning to it because it gives you immediate feedback. But human beings are not just stimulus response machines. We're meaning-making creatures. But we're also impatient. We want meaning to feel vivid. We want purpose to feel energizing. When deeper work feels slow or ambiguous, we look for a domain where meaning is dramatized. Attraction dramatizes meaning beautifully, very richly, colorfully. There's pursuit, there's risk, there's reward, there's visible confirmation that you are desired. And that drama can feel like purpose. But drama cannot be purpose. And when you confuse the two, You start outsourcing your sense of progress and purpose to whomever you want to be attracted to you. There's even another layer here. Sometimes you avoid larger structural decisions because they're genuinely difficult. Maybe you know your career path needs revision. Maybe you sense that your daily routine is hollow or empty. Maybe you realize your friendships lack real depth. Those are not easy problems to solve immediately. They require sustained effort and uncomfortable conversations. Attraction offers an alternative and actually easier focus. You can analyze texts all day instead of clarifying your professional direction. You can chase cold approaches instead of confronting your stagnation in life. You can obsess over getting a date instead of building real depth into your life. It feels productive, like you feel like you're doing something, you're taking action, you're putting yourself out there, you're improving your dating skills. From the outside, it looks like activity. But if attraction is functioning as a substitute for purpose or meaning, you're still delaying the harder work. The pattern persists because it gives you the sensation of progress without demanding actual structural change. And the more you try to solve neediness inside the pillar of attraction, the more you entrench that neediness because you're still centering attraction as the arena where your growth must happen. Counterintuitively, if you want your attractiveness to feel assured, you have to be willing to make your attractiveness and attraction less central in your life. This is counterintuitive, right? Especially if you're listening to this because you want more success in your dating life or your attractiveness. But the truth is simple. The steadiness you're looking for in attraction emerges when attraction is not carrying your identity. You don't become less attractive by building a life. You become less needy. And neediness is what repels. My friend Mark Manson has put it well, your attractiveness is inversely proportional to your neediness. If you build pillars that stand independently of your dating life, your brain no longer treats every romantic interaction as existential. You still care, you still pursue if you like, you still enjoy the chemistry, but you don't lean on it for reassurance of your worth. Attraction then becomes merely an expression of a life already in motion, rather than the engine trying to drag the life forward. So what's the most productive move here? It's simple in concept, but maybe demanding in practice. Your attractiveness emerges out of a life that already has purpose. When your days are organized around something that stretches you, something that requires effort or discipline and growth, your attractiveness emerges out of that more naturally. When you build momentum in work that matters to you, in your physical health or fitness that requires commitment, in skills that demand practice, in friendships that ask something of you, then you create multiple anchors for your identity and self-respect. You're no longer standing on a single slim pillar, hoping it holds. Your nervous system begins to regulate across domains. If a woman leans in, you enjoy it. If she leans back, you feel disappointment. But your groundedness, your centeredness, your footing remains intact because it rests on more than her response. And that's a very different experience from the one where her interest or attraction to you determines your mood for the week. Okay, so here's the key distinction. You don't reduce neediness by simply trying to think less needy thoughts. You don't calm desperation by policing your internal dialogue. Neediness is structural. It emerges when too much of your identity depends on one unstable variable. You reduce neediness by strengthening the overall structures of your life. When you commit to sustained effort in domains that demand responsibility, you earn your self-respect in a way that's not dependent on external validation. When you take on projects that require courage and consistency, you earn your own trust in yourself. And that trust doesn't evaporate just because one person declines a second date. And when you trust yourself, you stop demanding that attraction confirm your worth. This is why tactics alone never solve the deeper problem. You can learn better conversational skills. You can improve your fashion. You can refine your body language. Those things all help. But if attraction is still carrying your identity, you will transmit pressure and neediness no matter how smooth your lines are. The effective move isn't some behavior or technique. It's actually life construction. And that doesn't mean abandoning dating. It means putting it into proportion in the bigger picture of your life. It means making sure that if a romantic opportunity disappears tomorrow, your life still has plenty of weight and direction and forward motion and meaning. When that's true, attraction, dating, flirting becomes lighter. It becomes playful instead of urgent. It becomes an addition instead of rescue. So let's bring this home. Your attractiveness collapses when you ask it to carry identity, purpose, and self-worth. It cannot hold that weight. When other domains in your life lose momentum, your fixation on how your date treats you increases way too much. You start watching outcomes for reassurance. You start treating responses as signals about who you are and your worth. Rejection feels personal then because attraction has become structural. It's being asked to carry far more weight than it could ever bear. This is about imbalance. If you can widen the structure, the intensity settles into the correct proportion. Let me give you an example. There was a period in my own life when attraction felt like oxygen, when an attractive woman's interest in me could reset my mood for days. And it might even happen on a dime. I might be really down for an hour, and then she replies, and boom, I'm up. If she leaned in, I felt powerful. If she turned away, I felt empty. And at the time, I told myself I was passionate. I told myself I just cared deeply. But looking back, I can see that the other parts of my life weren't challenging me enough. They didn't test me enough. They didn't push me enough. They didn't demand growth or bring me any deeper meaning. So validation from women stepped in to fill that gap. It carried what purpose should have carried. And that made it dangerous. Because when your emotional regulation depends on someone else's fluctuating interest or attraction in you, you're living on an unstable ground. You might feel alive sometimes, but if you're smart, you also are constantly bracing for impact. If you continue asking attraction to supply your identity and purpose, you'll continue experiencing this instability that might feel mysterious and personal to you. You'll keep telling yourself that this woman is different, that this rejection is unique, that this intensity is proof of something profound. But the toxic pattern will repeat until the underlying structure is corrected. When you build a life that demands courage from you, when you commit to work that stretches you, when you cultivate friendships that require your full presence, when you take responsibility for your life, like your physical fitness and your discipline, then something very concrete happens. Your sense of groundedness and centeredness strengthens. You stop scanning for reassurance from others. You stop needing every interaction to confirm that you matter. You can approach, flirt, enjoy attraction, dating without asking it to save you or determine your self-worth. And when you can finally do that, women feel it. There's this great weight that's lifted when they are in your presence. They feel the absence of your neediness. They feel the groundedness and centeredness instead. They feel that you want them, but you don't require them to stabilize you or meet your needs. Life becomes a lot calmer and, at the same time, more expansive, bigger, broader. Attraction becomes part of a much larger movement instead of the entire story. You experience desire without desperation. You can experience rejection without collapsing. You can experience connection without any clinging. Okay, so this is the difference between living for attraction and allowing attraction to emerge out of a life that already has deeper meaning. And now you notice that their true problem is creating a life that has this deeper meaning. And this brings us to the deeper psychological and philosophical problems that are the broader focus of my work and of this podcast. Thanks so much for listening. If this has helped you in any way, please share it with anyone else that you think could benefit from it. I look forward to welcoming you to the next episode. Until then, David Tan, signing out.